atrocities. As we face our brothers, as we witness our brothers and sisters, families and friends in Gaza and whole Palestine face atrocities, our community is also inflicted with pain. We at the Islamic Center have received requests from community members wanting to learn more about Palestine and how to address the issues, questions, and myths. In responding to these requests, we have organized these two teaching sessions. The first one is today, and the second one will be at the same time, inshallah, next week. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Ahmed Soboh, chair of the of the Shura Council in Southern California, and he will be helping us debunk myths and tell the story of Palestine. Let us all listen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, we are blessed to be able to gather this evening to talk about such a very important topic, such a topic that it is so relevant to the times that we're going through right now. Over the past 2 months, we've witnessed the atrocities and the massacres that were taking place in Gaza, the bombardment, the killing, and the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. We also witnessed the vicious attack on our religion and our faith in media outlets, in statements that were issued by politicians, school boards, and media outlets. And there is a reason for that. The reason is that Muslims in the United States must always look as the bad guys, must always have a negative look at them by the public in the United States, so we don't have the power and the ability to influence and change the narrative and the actions of our government and our elected officials. This has been going on for years, since the day that this conflict took place, and since America became a superpower. So many people would say, what can we do in these situations? What can we do to help stop the killing and the bombardments and the support of those atrocities by our government, by our elected officials, by our president? There are so many things that we can do. Tonight, we will talk about one piece of the puzzle. You being here tonight, you being here listening to what we are saying, is actually the role that you can play, one of the things that we can do to help and support the people of Palestine. What we're doing tonight is we're talking about some of the misconceptions and the myths that are being spreading around about the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, about the conflict that's been taking place for decades. Simply because whenever we talk to people, our friends, our coworkers, our classmates, our sport mates, whoever we talk to and discuss with about this important topic, sometimes we are not equipped with the right and correct answers to some of their questions. Some of their questions or comments or statements are merely false because they come from a very powerful propaganda machine that's been working for years, that deceived people and hid the facts from them for many, many years. So don't be surprised when you sit down with your neighbor or your coworker and they tell you something like, oh, Muslims don't like Jews, that's why there's a war. You need to be ready to answer that question. You need to be ready to tell what is exactly taking place and what is the truth behind what's going on there. So that's what we'll be trying to do today. Of course, the myths and the misconceptions of the conflict are so many, and it's impossible for us to change them or talk about them in one session or one seminar or one webinar. But we'll try to tackle 4 or 5 of them tonight. And hopefully you can do the rest on your own by simply reading online trying to attend talks, listen to videos online to see how can you respond when someone throws at you a word or a statement that is not necessarily factual or true. And this is part of the struggle that we can do or participate in, because it's very peaceful. It's nothing illegal about it, nothing outside the norms of the society, that we're talking about things. Of course, as long as we're doing it properly with Islamic ethics and morals, and with professionalism and respect to those whom we're talking to. So, and then we will open it for discussions as well. So I will maybe share one of these misconceptions, talk a little bit about it, and then if you have any comments or questions, something to add to it, you're more than welcome to do that. And Erica, the moderator, will give you the room to do so. So we'll start with the first misconception that was mentioned earlier. Actually, you can post your questions on the chat as well, and I will try to answer them as they are coming or whenever I get a chance. The first misconception that I just mentioned earlier, I was talking to one of the elected officials in Orange County. He's the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. He's like the highest elected officials in the county. And he issued a statement condemning what happened in Gaza on October 7th. And he included in his condemnation that this is a form of Islamic terrorism. And I ask all the Muslim leaders to join me, condemn Islamic terrorism. Of course, when I sat down with him, I was extremely unhappy. I was extremely disappointed, because he's supposed to be a friend of the community. He's supposed to have my direct number. He can call me and tell me if that's what's said is accurate or appropriate. So I told him this was not right, what he said. And then he comes back and says, but you agree that this is a war between Muslims and Jews. The reason the people of Gaza did this because they hate Jewish people. And that's the biggest and the first misconception and myth that people have about the conflict in Palestine. They think and they assume, or they've been told, that the reason Palestinians are fighting are simply because they hate Jewish people. And that is absolutely false. You can ask any Palestinian leader, imam, scholar who lives in Gaza, who lives in Palestine, they will tell you, we have no problem with Jewish people. We have no problem with Judaism as a religion. Actually, part of our faith is asking us to respect Judaism as a religion. So if someone comes and tells you that, this is what you will discuss. You say, no, it's not. It's not about a war between religions. It's not about a fight between Muslims and Jews. Muslims don't hate Jews. Actually, we have a lot of friends who are Jewish. We extended warm wishes for their holidays in the past few days. Before the establishment of the State of Israel, Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived peacefully together in Palestine. I come from a town called Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the Mecca for the Christian community. So Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived in Palestine peacefully in a very beautiful society for 1,500 years, no problem. So what is the problem? What is the war? It is not a religious fight. It is a political fight between an occupier and an occupied group of people, an occupied nation and an occupier military. That is what it is about. It's not about Muslims are wishing to kill all the Jews or throw them all in the water. No, that is absolutely not true. Now, there might be some translation on some videos in Arabic when people say Yahud, and they are meaning the army. That is the norm in Palestine. When they want to refer to the army, they say Yahud. They don't mean Yahud in the religion form, because some of these armies actually not Jews. Some of them are secular, some of them are atheists, some of them are Muslims, some of them are Christians, but they are belonging to the Israeli army. So the misconception that this is a fight or a war between Islam and Judaism, it's not true. And we should be very strongly against this. Why? Because the moment it's brushed and painted as a war between religions and as a war that Muslims hate Jews, right away you click the anti-Semitism accusation. Right away you click into the, oh, you guys are hateful and bigots, and that's why you're wanting to kill all the Jews. It is absolutely false. So clearly say it's a political conflict between an occupier and an occupied. people. That is something to keep in mind. So that was the first thing that I would like you to keep in mind when you're talking about this. The second misconception, maybe we can open it right now. If there's any question about this point or anything you'd like to add about this point, feel free to put it in the chat or let the moderator know, and I will comment, or I'll get your questions or comments as well. The second misconception, and you'll hear that a lot, that this is a war that's been going on for 3,000 years. This is a conflict that's been going on for 3,000 years between Muslims and Jews. Again, they bring the first point and they throw it and add to it that Muslims and Jews have been fighting for 3,000 years. Now, each one of us know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not come 3,000 years ago. Prophet Muhammad came only 1,500 years ago. So the fact that they say that it's a war between Islam and Judaism for 3,000 years, it's by default a contradicting statement, and a statement that's completely not true. And again, Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived in Palestine for 1,500 years with no problems. So when did this fight start? It started, I would say, 75 years or a little bit more. The State of Israel was established in 1948, but before the establishment of the State of Israel, there was a heavy migration. You'll learn that next week with Sister Hidab when we talk about the history. There was a heavy migration of European Jews to Palestine, and many of them were militias, were terrorist groups designed by the word, and they started taking out the land. They started fighting and trying to scare the people or the inhabitants of the land to run away. So the fight, you can say, it did not start 3,000 years ago. It started 75 to 80 years ago. That is the times, that's the time that we can say that this conflict started. It did not start 3,000 years ago. That's a very important point to say, because when you say it's a 3,000 years ago problem, it's a 3,000-year-old conflict, it makes it impossible to fix, right? So it's not. It's a around 75 to 85 years old conflict or fight or war that happened between Israelis and Palestinians. Israelis, the occupiers, Palestinians, the occupied people. Now, it's also important to know who you're talking to, because sometimes you need to choose your words when you're talking, when you are addressing people about this conflict. Never said it's the Jewish people fighting the Arabs or the Palestinians. It's best to say the Israeli government or the Israelis fighting the Palestinians or the occupied people, the people of Palestine. So that was the second point. It's not a 3,000-year conflict. It's only 75 to 85 years old conflict or war. Now that gets us to the third point, and it's also important for us to understand that many times people ask you, or you ask people, what do you think of what's going on in the Middle East? Or what do you think of what's going on in Israel or Palestine? And many people will come and tell you, oh, it's complicated. It is too complicated. Politicians will tell us that all the time. It's too complicated. Oh, it's something that could not be solved. It's been going on for millennia, 3,000 years. And even those who know it just started 75 years ago, they say, oh, it's a decade-old fight or conflict, and it's impossible to fix. The answer, no, it's not impossible to solve. It's very simple, actually. If there is a desire to reach peace, if there is a desire to achieve a solution that will make everyone live in peace, it's possible, it's doable, but we have to have the desire. It's not complex, it's not complicated. What's complicated is when you're trying to build a rocket and send it to space. That's complicated. But this is not complicated. Simply, there is an occupying force preventing people from living their normal lives. I was in a church just a few days ago, and people asked me the same question. Oh, they told me it's too complicated. How this would be solved? And I start telling them about the things that are taking place in Palestine. Why, if we fix those problems, the solution will be done. There is a wall. The wall prevents people from living their normal lives. If you want to go to work, the usual time, it would take you 15 minutes. Now, because of the wall, it will take you 3 hours. Imagine having to go to work and you have to spend 3 hours going around the whole town because there's a wall that prevents you from going to work, the shortcut, or going to school. The checkpoints that are there are meant simply to humiliate Palestinians when they are crossing from one town to another. The apartheid regime, when there are freeways that are preventing certain groups of people because of their ethnicity to drive on it, and you only allow another part of the people to drive, that's apartheid. So if we get rid of the occupation, if we give Palestinians autonomy, give them the ability to decide for their own, make them their own deciders when do they get electricity and when they do get water and when they do get internet, not by controlling those for them. When they have the ability to control their banking system, now the Israeli government simply can tell the Palestinian Authority, we're not happy with you, we're not going to give you the money for this month, you cannot pay salaries. Who on earth would want to live that life? When the Israeli government every week and every month goes into Gaza or goes into Jenin or goes into Nablus, kills somebody, arrests somebody, demolish someone's house, all these things will cause people to boil and eventually explode and do want to fight such a brutal occupation. So if we stop the occupation, if we give Palestinians their ability to decide on their own, then the problem will be solved. It is not that complicated. If we prevent the settlers from going and taking pieces of lands, of the Palestinians' lands, and simply decide it's their own now because they lived in it or they camped on it for a week or two, that will create problems. We prevent the settlers from doing that. Very simple, very easy. The problem is that the Israeli government is allowing the settlers to do that. It's allowing them to go to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa to provoke people. It's allowing for them to go and humiliate and harass teenagers. And in one case, they burned a young teenage boy while he was alive to death. So preventing these people from doing such things will make it solvable, will make the problem solvable. Now, some people will say, do we create two states or one state? And that they called one state solution or two state solutions. Again, both these solutions are simple. They could be done, but there is no desire. A one state solution means the whole land will become one land and everybody who lives within that land have the same rights, the same human rights, the same civil rights, the same ability to get education, to vote, to get elected. That's the one state solution. Becomes a democracy, as we always claim that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, it's not. It's an apartheid. One side is having democracy, the other side does not. So, but if we open it and we make everyone is able to be part of this democratic system, then that's a solution. Now, why do Israelis don't want that? Because demographically, it will make them not the majority of the land. And that's why they're against it. The other solution is the two-state solution, where the West Bank and Gaza will be given, become the Palestinian state and completely independent, and the rest of the historical Palestine will be Israel. Now, again, within the Israeli government, people who don't want that. Why? Because those religious fanatics, they think that the whole land belongs to the Jewish community promised by God. And that's settlers will fight to be taken out from the West Bank or relocate to the other part of the land. So the solutions are there, but they need desire. They need the government of Israel to actually work hard to fix that. That gets us to the next misconception, that the Palestinians refused all kind of solutions that were offered to them back during the days of Clinton presidency. President Clinton, if you remember, met at Camp David with Ehud Barak, the Israeli prime minister at that time, and Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader. And it was a scene on TV, if you remember it, when they were shaking hands and they were entering the door, and Yasser Arafat tried to push them all to go ahead of them. It was a funny scene. But in that meeting, they met for hours and they came out without any conclusive decision. The media and the propaganda went out and said that Palestinians were given the right or the offer of their lifetime to have their own state, their own land, but they refused it because they were greedy, or they were not realistic in what they're asking for. If you look at the details of what was offered to the Palestinians on that day, in that meeting, you will laugh. Not even a little kid will accept such an offer and such a settlement. It was a very unfair, unrealistic, unacceptable offer that the Palestinians will own very small percentage of the West Bank and very small percentage of Jerusalem, and no rights for the refugees, no rights for them to have a true state. So the myth or the misconception that it's the Palestinians who refused this offer, and hence we are in this problem. Absolutely false, not true. The Palestinians were not given a true offer, a genuine offer that will make them establish a strong or even a normal state for their community or for their people. The other misconception that could also take place, that October 7th was the beginning of this conflict, when people from Gaza, they were fed up with the killing and the bombardment and the siege that had been taking place, and they went out and they acted in a violent way against the neighboring Israeli settlements. Now, it's important for us to understand from an Islamic perspective, whoever does it, killing innocent or civilians is unacceptable. Islamically, we agree on that, all right? Now, the majority of the people who were killed on that day were soldiers. And that is something you will find that people are saying it's not the propaganda that's going around, that the people of Gaza, Hamas, went out and killed innocent people, beheaded 40 babies, sorry for saying that, raped women, but it's all propaganda. It's all false. First lie, that they beheaded 40 babies. It did not happen, did not take place, and you all know that by now. And feel strong to say that. Feel strong to say that media outlets took back that and did not confirm it later on. They said it was not confirmed news, and some of them said it was false. Even the White House spokesperson said they took it back when the president said it. What's funny, when I was talking at another church, I told someone said, but they beheaded 40 babies. And I said, no, the president took it back. He said it was not true. And their answer was, and look how the propaganda works and how people are prepared to have answers and explanations for everything just to justify their point of view. They said, oh, the president took it back only to appease the Muslim voters, and so he would not lose the Muslim voters in America. I started laughing. I didn't know what to say after that. I said, this is really ridiculous and nonsense. Go look into the official statements from the news channels and see how it was not a true story. But back to the misconception that the people of Gaza started the war on October 7th. The truth is that they did not. This is the result of a 17-year-old blockade against the people of Gaza. No water, no food, no normal life standards. Any person, any Western volunteer, doctors, nurses, teachers who went to volunteer in Gaza will come back and tell us that this is not a place where humans can live normally. So, and the constant killing, it doesn't stop. Every week, someone gets killed in Gaza or the West Bank. Every month, people's homes being destroyed. People get arrested and go to prison for no good reason without any trial. So the war did not start on October 7th. That's a very important myth that we need to refute and confidently say it, that the war did not start on October 7th. And of course, all the details that, all the spices that they put into it, that the 40 babies were beheaded and all that kind of false accusations and false information, also we should be refuting them and be comfortably saying it's not true, that did not take place. So that was another misconception that we can refute. The other one, another misconception could say, is that that all the people of Gaza are Hamas fighters. It's not true. Now, if you ask the people of Gaza about what's their opinion about Hamas, they're not going to tell you what we say, what our government says here, that they are a terrorist group, simply because they are in a desperate need for anyone to stand up and help them. So they look at them as those who are freedom fighters who are helping them. That kind of a discussion, I would say, leave it for intellectuals, leave it for people who talk to politicians about it, because this is a very difficult topic to address and talk, and you don't want to be saying the things that could be taken against you as someone who's supporting a group that's been designated by the government as a terrorist group. Nevertheless, people around the world, people in the Middle East have a different opinion about that group, and we cannot force everyone to just say what we're saying. So these were some of the misconceptions that I've been talking to maybe for about half an hour about. So if you have any comments or questions or anything that you'd like to share, we can talk about it or answer them. Otherwise, I'll keep going and talking about other points that are facing us when we're talking about this topic. A question that came in the chat, that criticizing Israel is viewed as anti-Semitic. Many times people will throw this at you when you say, when you criticize the actions of the government of Israel and the actions of the Israeli army, they will throw it at you and say, oh, you're anti-Semite or you're anti-Semitic. There are wrong ways to answer this question. One of the wrong ways to answer this question, a lot of people from the Middle East will say, I cannot be an anti-Semite because I'm Semitic myself. As Arabs, we are Semites. We cannot be anti-Semitic when I am myself a Semite. While this is true, but it does not help you in the discussion. It does not help. Why is that? The term anti-Semitic or anti-Semite, it literally used to say anti-Jewish. That's what it means. No one is going to get in trouble for saying bad things about Arabs. No one's going to get in trouble for saying any bad thing about any Semite person, except if they were Jewish. So anti-Semite here, it's used for anti-Jewish or anti-Judaism. And of course, we are not, as we said earlier. We have no problem with the Jewish community. Many of our friends in this area are Jewish people who are supporting the rights of Palestine, Jewish Voices for Peace, and other organizations. Many of the young Jewish Americans who are working in the media are seeing the truth, and they are against what the Israeli government is doing. They are against the extremist, hardcore, right-wing government led by Netanyahu. So when we criticize Israel, we're not criticizing it being anti-Semitic or because they're Jewish. We're criticizing it as a political entity that is practicing apartheid, just like we did with South Africa. And it is occupying a land that does not belong to it. Not only that, it's mistreating the occupied people that who are living under their occupation. So we are criticizing the state of Israel, the government of Israel. If tomorrow the government of Israel comes out and says, we're going to give full rights to all the Palestinians who are living here, it'll be okay. We have no problem. If they come out and say, we're going to compensate those refugees who were kicked out from their homes over the 75 years, we'll be happy to hear that. We have no problem with that. So this is something that it's also important for us to keep in mind, that criticizing Israel is not criticizing or anti-Semitic. They will always try to throw that at us. And now the newest thing, that you cannot criticize Zionism because Zionism is Judaism. I was meeting with one of the rabbis in Orange County area who invited me to his podcast. I'll be speaking on it within the next few weeks. And he explained to me, because I told him when we first met, I'm not going to convince you with my points of view, and I know you're not going to convince me with your point of view, but let us try to understand what is going on here. How do you guys look at things? I was shocked and surprised to know that the American Jewish community strongly believe that the media is so biased against them. And they genuinely believe this. They think that the media is making them look bad and the media is supporting the Palestinians 100%. Of course, we as a community, we see that completely differently. We actually see the opposite, right? But one of the questions that I asked, why are you considering anti-Zionism as anti-Semitic? And his answer was because they believe that Zionism is Judaism. Now, you might have a small group of the Jewish community who are considered very liberal Jews. They don't believe that. They will say Zionism is not Judaism. You also find another small group on the far extreme right who are, you've seen them on TV. They're rabbis wearing Palestinian flags and going around demonstrating against the Israeli atrocities. They also believe that Zionism is not Judaism. But the majority of the Jewish community, they believe that Zionism and Judaism are one, even though Zionism is a political movement and Judaism is a religion. But they believe if you are against Zionism, you are against Jewish people as well. So they count it as a anti-Semitic statement, and you are justifying the terrorism or killing against Jewish community. So it's very important that when we talk, we say, I have no problem with Jewish people. I have friends who are Jews, and I have nothing but respect to the Jewish religion because that's my religion was asking me to do. I am against, and my opinion to say, I am against the atrocities that are committed by the Israeli government. This would be a great thing to say. The second question, what is the difference between Zionism and Jews? I think I answered it, but I can go back and say it again. Zionism is a movement that started in the 1900s, exactly 1898. There was a man, a Jewish leader in Europe. His name is Theodor Herzl. He called for a mass conference between all the Jews of Europe, and he presented the idea of establishing this movement called Zionism that is aspiring to create a land or a nation or a place or a homeland for the Jewish people from all around the world. It's a political movement. Many people within the Zionist movements are atheists. They're secular, they're not religious. But Jews and Jewish people, they look at Judaism as an ethnic identity, not just a religious identity. You'll find it's very common to see someone who says, I am an atheist Jew. You cannot say I'm an atheist Muslim because Islam is a religion that's not an ethnic identity. But in Judaism, they look at Judaism as an ethnic identity, and Zionism is part of that ethnic identity or that part of that political identity. So you can spend hours and hours trying to convince someone that no, Zionism is not Judaism, is not a religion, but you'll find most of the Jewish community in America will tell you, I don't care what you think, I'm a Jew, I'm a Zionist, they're both together at the same place. How do you respond to claim that Hamas does not want Israel to exist? Well, Hamas does not want an occupying force to exist. Hamas does not want an army that's killing its people right and left. There might be some people within the Hamas movement who would say, we don't want anybody in Palestine who is Jewish, but that is not the opinion of the leaders of the historical leaders of. I mean, I just saw a YouTube video today. One of the founder of Hamas, he was asked, "What are you? Do you hate Jews?" He said, "I have no problem with Jews. We lived with Jews all our lives before. We lived with Jews for centuries in Palestine. We have a problem with an occupying force." He said, "Even if it was my brother who is Muslim who comes and kicks me out of my house and takes it away from me, I'm gonna fight him until he gives me back my house." Hamas is trying, and again, I'm not a spokesperson for them. I don't talk on their behalf, but what I know about them, that they are fighting an occupying force. It's not about killing all the Jews or getting rid of all the Jews. What about the statement that's saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? You want to annihilate Israel. All right. First of all, whenever I go to a demonstration and I hear the chants of "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," I always, for the past maybe 10 years, because again, Gaza demonstration do not stop, they keep going. I always expected that this will be an issue because people can twist it and use it against us by saying that's what you want. When people ask me, what do you mean by that? I say, we want a free Palestine, whoever lives there, just like there are people who are having all their rights, who are Israelis having all, we want the same rights to the Palestinians. Right now, from the river to the sea, half of Palestine is not, the people don't live in a free life, and the other half live in a free life. We want everyone to be free, everyone to be able to participate in the political life, everyone to be able to have their human rights and civil rights equally given to them. So if someone tells you, what do you mean by that? That's what we mean. We mean we want every single human being in the land to have rights regardless of their faith, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their background, whether they're Muslims, Christians, or Jews, whether they identify as Palestinians or Israelis. We want everyone to be free from any kind of occupation. Question 4, what are the current demands of the Palestinian people? What do they mean from the, again, I think that's what it means. Is it the 1967 borders or before 1948 borders? All right, so Palestinians have different approach to that question. Practically speaking, and I've heard many Palestinian leaders in Palestine, even among the leaders of Hamas, who said, if the Palestinian people are okay with us having a Palestinian land within the boundaries of the 1967, then we'll be okay with that. But remember, there are millions of refugees around the world who used to live in Jaffa and Akka and Haifa and all these lands, and they were kicked out from their lands. And they still live in refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. What are we doing about these people? How can they be compensated? And how can they have their rights back? So we cannot just say, are you talking about the 1967 or are you talking about 1948? We're talking about anybody who was kicked out from their house to have their house back or to be compensated for it. Anybody who was his wealth or his money was stolen from them to be given back to them or to have their some kind of compensation. The solution is not simply 1967 or 1948. The solution is give rights to those who were their rights were taken away from them. Let us talk about the refugees that are living all around the world. What are they? Are they going to stay living in refugees forever? They cannot do that. It's not. If you visit any of the refugees camp in Lebanon, it's a horrible life. These were all people who were kicked out and pushed away. Let them go back to their lands. Let them back to their countries. We don't have to kick. There's plenty of room for everyone. There's plenty of land for everyone to be there. Just like what we thought when the Jewish refugees start coming to Palestine, we start saying, we have room. Let us all have a community together. So the question is whether it's 1967 or 1948, it doesn't matter. What matters is that nobody get killed, nobody get bombarded, no homes get demolished, and refugees get their rights back. 894 passed House 2 days ago, which says it's anti-Semitic to oppose the policies of Israeli government. Yep, and that's what we need to work hard on here in America. Our job is to fight those unfair resolutions or laws or bills that the government's trying to push. And we will keep fighting. You know what? You look at the Palestinians who are in prison for 18, 20 years because they're fighting this oppression. You look at Nelson Mandela, who spent tens of years in the prison fighting the apartheid. We have to be strong enough to fight these kinds of resolutions legally, politically, and lobby against them. Even if it means I'm going to lose my job, even if it means I'm going to have some harassment from people here or there, even if that means someone's going to sue me, I'll sue back. Let us have some bone. Let us have some strength here. Let us try our best to fight within the legal battles of this system. That we are part of the system. We're part of this democracy. Let us use our votes and our abilities to fix these things that we're seeing around us. All right. Excuse me, I missed a part of the one-state solution. I think it's recorded. I think you can go back and listen to the recording. But very simply, I can say there are two solutions that again, what we're talking about, that this is a complex situation. We cannot fix it. Actually, yeah, we can fix it. There are two solutions, either the one-state solution or two-state solutions. These two solutions can actually fix the problem very simply. We just have to have the desire from the parties, and especially the Israeli government, to accept one of these solutions. But you can go back to the recording, and inshallah you can see the you can find the answer for that question, inshallah. All right. Any other questions? Let me see if I missed any of them. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it for the
questions. Okay. Do we have, Sister Erica, how much time do we have?
So we still have about 17 minutes, 18 minutes, if you want to continue.
Okay. So we can actually go with others of the more of the misconceptions. One of the let's see if one of the misconceptions that actually, and I lived in Palestine, and I worked in Palestine, and I practiced dentistry in Palestine, in Bethlehem, and I had patients who were Arabs and Israelis, Muslim, Christians, and Jews, and they would live with I remember one day I walked out to the waiting room, and there was an Arab Muslim, and Arab Christians, and an Israeli Jew sitting down, and all what they cared about is how much it's going to hurt to pull out a tooth, right? People have similar concerns and aspirations. The fact that the myth that all Palestinians and all Israelis hate each other and they want to kill each other, it's not true. I think it's possible that they can live with each other. They can coexist and have a good life with each other. But whenever you have inequality, injustice, apartheid, discrimination between people, you would create that hatred or animosity towards, from one side towards the other. So I think once we establish equal rights for everyone, it will be very easy and doable to have people live with each other. Not all Israelis and not all Palestinians want to kill each other or hate each other.
Yeah, so we have two new questions that just came in, just to let you know.
All right. Just a second. Excuse me for a minute, okay?
I just want to thank everyone who's joining. If you have a question, please feel free to put it in the question and answer section down below on the Zoom.
All right. So I don't know if it has been addressed. What do you say to those who say civilian deaths are necessary because Hamas are using civilians as human shields? Absolutely unacceptable, regardless on which side we're talking about. See, the problem is that if anyone says that civilians' death are necessary, are needed, that's a monster talking, whoever it is. That's a person who has, because in our religion, in our faith, it clearly says civilians should not be harmed. Now, saying Hamas using kids as human shields, it's nonsense. It's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not factual. So using civilian deaths as an excuse to promote a political goal, that is the definition of terrorism. That's what ISIS does. That's what KKK does. That's what any terrorist group on the face of earth, killing civilians to push a government or a group of people to make a political decision. So that is the definition of terrorism, and it's Islamically completely unacceptable. Now, if someone says, if the question is about the Israeli government trying to justify what they're doing, I will definitely, completely unacceptable, completely wrong for them to say that. Now, if one of our communities saying that, or some of the Palestinians are saying that, I also say it's wrong. That's my part to say to my Palestinian fellows, to my Muslim community, it is unacceptable to say the death of civilians could be justified. Absolutely not. Especially if it's intentional. Now, if it happens unintentional, that's a different story. Now, someone say, but it's all the people in Gaza are dying as a collateral damage. That's nonsense. There is intentional targeting of civilians in Gaza. There's intentional bombardment of buildings that they know only civilians live there for the intention of making people run away. This is exactly what happened before 1948. If you go and read about a place called Deir Yassin, Deir Yassin was a village in Palestine. And the Jewish terrorist groups, Haganah, it was a militia. They went to that village, they gathered all the men and the boys and on side and the women on one side, and they executed all the men and the boys in front of the women. And then they let the women run away. The women ran to other villages saying, these people are coming, doing this, so everyone start running away. I think that's the intention behind bombarding all these civilians in Gaza nowadays, to let people flee and run away for the sake of displacement. It is very disheartening to see our elected officials be silent with our demands for a ceasefire now. What can we do about that? Absolutely. It is absolutely frustrating to see our elected officials act in such a manner that will show so much bias and so much dismissing of our voices and our opinions. It is very frustrating and it's very sad and makes us angry. But the way we deal with it is how we keep going. Political engagement, lobbying, show them that we are voters, show them that we have the ability to support financially. We met with a congressman many years ago. He's retired now. It was another war on Gaza, and we asked him, why do you always vote against the Palestinians and against the people of Gaza? He said, when there is a bombardment or an attack on Gaza, when there is a war in the Middle East, you guys go to the streets and demonstrate, but the other side come to my office with their checkbooks. He said that very clearly to us. So we have to understand how politics work, and we have to mature as a community right now. I always say, instead of sending millions of dollars to buy food, rice, medicine, blanket to the people of Gaza, they will be better off with us spending this money here to change the politicians' positions. Don't say it's impossible. The only reason these politicians are making these decisions and ignoring our calls for ceasefire, because they get more support and more money from the side who does not want ceasefire. The moment they see that we are able to support and give and vote and make a difference in the elections results, they will listen to us. if you remember, there was this TV host, Piers Morgan, I'm sure you know him, and he was completely dismissive to any pro-Palestinian host or voice until he saw one of the interviews scored the highest number of viewers on his show. So what did he do after that? He realized that, you know what? I can get more views, I can get more advertising, more money if I bring that voice again. And he did. And since then, we start seeing him bringing more pro-Palestinian voices to his show, because it's all comes back to money, number of votes or number of views. We have to understand that. So I think we have a lot of work to do. So yes, it's painful, but it doesn't mean we should not do anything about it. We should work, meet, engage, politically engage with all these officials, with all these elected people, so we can make them change their mind, inshallah, one person at a time. Likud Charter says, from the ordinance to see, and you'll see is, and all you'll see is Israeli sovereignty first, use way before. Yes, the question is, yes, we answered about the Palestinian Semitic people, and again, it's not helpful to go out and say I cannot be an anti-Semite because I'm a Semite myself, because that's not what they mean. They mean anti-Semitism means anti-Judaism, period. And yes, the Likud party is very extreme and very aggressive in promoting their extreme agenda. And not only they say from the river to the sea, they say from the river to the river. Many hardcore extreme Israelis, they will say from the river to the river, which is the Nile to the Euphrates, what they want to establish their kingdom. And this is not something we're fabricating. This is something you can see it. You can go online and find many of the settlers in Palestine say that clearly and widely, and they're not shy from it. All right. Any other questions?
Those are all of our questions. If anyone has any last questions, please feel free to post them in the question and answer section.
There are so many people out there giving talks from our Southern California community. Dr. Ahlam Al-Muhtasib, I suggest that you all follow her and listen to what she says. She's a professor at San Bernardino University, and she's an amazing source of information about Palestine. You have Dr. Hatem Bazian from Northern California, an amazing source of information about Palestine. You go to American Muslims for Palestine, that's a good organization to support any political engagement for the sake of Palestine. There are so many sources online you can read about the myths and the talking points, like ifamericansknew.com, Eye on Palestine. There's so many beautiful sources online that will get you a lot of information, more than what we talked about today. What about their claim that this is their ancestors' homeland? Well, it's our ancestors' homeland too. Anybody who says, the question is, if someone claims, what do we say when people claim that this is their ancestors' homeland? There was a video just a few days ago by Dr. Frankenstein who answered that question very well. He said, if you live in your house right now and someone comes to you with their Bible or their scripture and tells you, you have to get out because 3,000 years ago, my ancestors lived here. This is maybe one of the most ridiculous claims that someone can make to kick you out of your house. If we go with that, then nobody can live anywhere in this world, because 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, different people lived in those places. So unfortunately, they keep saying that, and many of the people in this country still believe in that claim and agree with it and have no problem with it. But if you put the analogy and throw it back at them, they'll tell you, no, I would not accept someone to come and take my house because 3,000 years ago, someone lived in the vicinity or had the land around my area. This is the house that I built, this is the house I paid for, I bought. There is no way I can give it out to someone simply because they say 3,000 years ago, someone could be their ancestor lived here.
Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed Soboh, for this enlightening teaching. And I also want to thank Sister Hadab Tarifi for your opening remarks. And I want to remind everyone to please join us next Friday at the same time, 7:15 p.m. with the same Zoom link for part 2 of our Palestine Teaching webinar series, Palestine Explained. If you want to give any closing remarks, go ahead.
Myself or Hidab?
Either of you.
Go ahead, Ahmed.
All right. So spending an hour with us this evening is one of the things that you have done to support the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put it in the scale of our good deeds and to help us do more to stop the atrocities, to save innocent people and innocent civilians, to prevent the massacres and the genocides from taking place. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with the people of Gaza, to heal those who are wounded among them, to forgive those who died and count them as the shuhada. And also we ask him to find homes and refuge for those orphans who lost their parents and give strength and patience for those parents who lost their children. Ameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward everyone who attended tonight and those who organized and made sure that this is a successful program. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.